should the Fed proactively cut? Like the relationship between things like uh, openings and wages and the unemployment rate are not known. I think it's just really important to recognize that. We do not know how those things are going to play out through time. And as a function of that, I think it's very important to recognize that because of that, making policy decisions based upon speculation about how relationships might play out, job openings as a simple example, relative to the unemployment rate or wages, um, is foolish. Uh, and therefore, I think, shouldn't the Fed preemptively cut uh, in order to avert recession dynamics? I think it's always a question. There's always um, the desire or always the lever where recession dynamics always seem scary ahead, and it always can feel better to cut interest rates now on the possibility that that recession could possibly come and you want to get ahead of it. But what we've seen, but there's a risk, and I think the risk is not talked about enough, which is that if we reinflate this economy after a period of years of above target inflation, um, a reinflation of this economy could easily create a scenario where inflation expectations become stuck uh, at a level that is elevated compared to a desirable level at 2%. And without a meaningful deterioration of growth, it's not clear that we're getting a meaningful deterioration in growth. And without that, it's not clear that the challenges of higher embedded inflation are worth the risks of, are worth proactively cutting. And that's the trade-off. And I think in general, when we say proactively cutting, that doesn't mean maybe the Fed cuts 25 basis points or whatever. Maybe the Fed cuts a little bit. What I'm talking about is aggressive cutting. And so the argument that there is no cost of aggressive cutting, from aggressive cutting is people aren't considering the possible consequences of it. And embedded inflation from a structural perspective, go back to the 70s, talk to people who lived through the 70s and the pain that occurred there. That was 15 years of terrible economic pain. And so avoiding years and years of terrible economic pain in order to, avert a possible circumstance that labor markets might possibly be deteriorating, that's not a good trade-off. And I think that's the thing that the Fed and to be clear, other central banks are wrestling with, and they're increasingly recognizing that there's no reason to be proactive, in particular from the Fed's perspective, because if things start to be meaningfully weak, they can always cut interest rates given the fact that they have a meaningful range at their disposal.